So today is Daf Ayin. We're going to start in the Mishnah Daf Samach Tesamid Beis. We're going to start with the sugya about the Mavakeres Hamakasha Leileit. We're talking about the mother never gave birth to any children, so the child would have Kedushas Bechor. So there's a few quick akdamas to get just in the pashtus of what we're doing over here. And then we're going to see there's a very, very complicated Gemara. It's sort of complicated, but we're going to try to make it as quick as possible, as simple as possible. And Be'ez Hashem, we're going to say over to Piskarov. But the halach, what we're talking about over here is like this. The halach is that a mother, a para, that the first animal, the first baby that it gives birth to is a bechor, has kedushas bechor, and we're not allowed to feed it to the dogs, right? You're not allowed to be matamum in a bechor. It has kachim, and it's kachim that happens automatically without you assigning it, right? It's the only thing that happens on its own. Now, but there is a small grace period. Why? Because lamaisa, the kedushas bechor doesn't kick in until it was noilad, till it has a shem yalud, right? So memela, so either the head comes out, but if it's coming out foot first, so then you have till roiv to what? To do something, because you could beat the kedushas bechor and do something. So the Gemara is going to discuss about cutting. The Mishnah is going to talk about cutting it up. The Gemara is going to talk about selling it to a guy. The halacha is if a guy owns part of the child, then it's yad akom be'emtza, and it doesn't have kedushas bechor, right? So that's the eights that we're talking about over here. We're talking about. It's kedai. We'll see the Mishnah and we'll see the Gemara. And really, a big chelik of the explanation of our Mishnah itself is going to be first explained when we get to the Gemara in Amud Aleph. So first of all, the mother's a mevakeres, meaning she never gave birth, and she's mekasha leilit. So what do you do? So it's mutter for him to be mechatech ever or mashlach lekavim, because since it's still before roiv, so therefore he can be mashlach lekavim. He can throw it and throw it to the dogs. Yotzer rubai harei zei kaver. But if let's say yotzer rubai, now what does yotzer rubai mean? So Rashi tells us a few times in the sugya that the pashtus of the taich of the Mishnah is yotzer rubai means ka'achas. Rashi tells it to us over here, and in the Gemara it's going to be mavur. The yotzer rubai, for some reason, the word yotzer rubai is mashma that it came out all at once. That Rav came out at once. Why is that? I'm not sure. Why? Why can't it be yotzer?
Part comes out, that's considered out. And part comes out, you couldn't.
Kipshuta, it seems like that it won't be called rubai. It's roiv if it's a whole bunch of little pieces. Yeah, rubai is mashma, has some sort of an entity. Rubai, it's roiv, right? It's yatsa roiv, right? We don't care if it's rubai, right? It's entity. It's mashma. Rubai is mashma that there's some sort of an entity here. It came out all at one big piece. Roiv would be mashma that lamais eventually pieces came out little by little. Kipshuta, that's the taich. I'm not sure. Okay, let's see. So okay, so what do you have to do? Harei you cover it, because once it's already yutzias haroiv, so now already it's chal kedushas b'chayra, and therefore I'm not allowed to send it give it to the club. Harei you cover it, and teres b'na b'chayra. So I'm just going to give you a hagdama. There are going to be three issues over here that we're going to try to do over here about a bechor, right? Three issues that you might want to do before roiv. You want to try to get in before kedushas bechor kicks in. What are the three things? The Gemara discusses being cutting it off and giving it to the klavim. So cutting it up and giving to the klavim are two issues. One is making a mum in bechor. Tosfos doesn't discuss it until Amud Aleph, and Rashi doesn't discuss it until the next sugya, making a mum.
Before roiv, it doesn't have no din of bechor.
Oh, that's what Rashi says. But Rashi doesn't wake up to talk about it until the next sugya, for some reason. Good. That's going to be shtel number one. Now, giving it to the dogs, the question is, giving it to the dogs. So you want to give, so the Mishnah says, you can give it to the dogs before Rav. Okay, fine. That's issue number one. Issue number two is about selling it to an Yehudi. Selling it to an Yehudi. Could you sell it to an Yehudi or not? Before Kedushas Bechar, it belongs to you and you could sell it to an Yehudi. If after Kedushas, but after Kedushas Bechar, it's not yours and you can't sell it. Fine. So that's two issues, number one and number two. And the third issue is the issue that Tosfos introduces, and all the Achronim are busy with the Rambam, which is that if somebody would want to be makdish it, to preempt the Kedushas Bechar, if he wants to be makdish a part of it before it was Yotzer Rubai. Yeah, those are the three issues that we're going to have to discuss. Okay. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Itmar. Ja, tzashlesh what? Yeah, if it's not yours, you can't be makdish it. Once it's yours, once it has kedushas bechor, it's not yours. Once it's not yours, you can't be makdish it. Itmar yotza shlish. Let's say it was yotza shlish. A third of it went out. Umachar lev kachavim, and he sold it to a guy. V'chazav yatza shlish acher, and then another shlish went out. So now the question is like this. So right now there's a rayv out of it. But I sold the first quarter, the first third. So what's the halacha? Massive machlokes Rav Huna and Rabba. Rav Huna amar kaddish. It is kaddish, even though it's yad akom be'emtza, but it's still going to be kaddish. And Rabba amar ain't kaddish. So what's the pshat of Rav Huna? Rav Huna amar kaddish kesava limafreya kaddish. V'kivan denafik le'rubei igloim milsa limafreya demikara havikadesh. He says that retroactively we find out that there was Rav ultimately came out, and once Rav ultimately came out, retroactively has kedusha, and if it has kedusha, Avada, it's not mine. If it's not mine, I can't sell it. So retroactively, we find out that the Rav came out. If the Rav came out, then what? If the Rav came out, so it's not mine, I can't sell it. If I can't sell it, there's no Yad Akum Be'emtza. Simple. Now, what's the obvious question? So how was I able to give it to L'Klavim? Right? That's the obvious question. Obvious. What?
Either one way or the other, right? If it has kedusha, you can't give it.
No, so the teretz is, so before, right. So how do I give it to the klavim? L'chura what? L'chura it has kedushas b'chaya. The Mishnah says that. And how the Mishnah says that for the first, if it's before it's Yotzer Rubai, I can give it to the Klavim. So the question is, how could I give it to the Klavim? I retroactively. We're gonna find out that right now it's Kaddish, right? So how could I go give it to Klavim? Right? It has kedusha, right? That's the question. So I'll already tell you what Rashi holds. So Rashi. That, like Rav Huna, we're going to have to say that the pshat is that he gave it to the Kelev and the Kelev ate it up. So once the Kelev ate it up, it's too late. Had he let it sit around, had he not given it to the dog right there, then Avad Kedushas B'chayra would have been Chal once the Rav came out. But since he gave it to the Kelev right there, so Mamela and the Kelev ate it up real quickly. So now there's nothing for it to be chal on. And since there's nothing to be chal on, there's nothing to worry about. Yeah, that is the verb. And the Kanami would have worked retroactively had it still been sitting around over there on the side of the road. If it was still sitting there, obviously he can't give it to a Kelev afterwards. That is how Rav Huna is going to hold. Umay desoven like klum zoven, and what he sold is like klum. It's not his because he didn't sell. Because retroactively it has kedushas b'chayr. Rabba ma'ine kaddish. Why? Because kesaven mikanu laba kaddish. That the kedusha only kicks in after the roiv, and since the kedusha only kicks in after the roiv, before it never goes retroactively, and since it never goes retroactively. So therefore, since it doesn't go retroactively, so the kedusha is only going to is going to only start kicking in from here on in, and by now already, the it's yad akom be'emtza memelo kedushas b'chayra will never be chal. Umay dezavin shap is zavin. Yeah, that is the Gemara. Oh, so now, okay. So what you're pointing, so what you're talking about is very interesting. Very interesting. The Marsha says, and I wasn't mine in this, but the Marsha says that if he wants to sell the part that's inside the body, that would not be an issue. The case is where a chelik was yatsa, and that's what he sold to the guy. Takei kanami, but if he would sell the part that's still in the behema, then it wouldn't be an issue. Okay, that part never gets kedusha even retroactively. Okay. I think that's a chiddush, because why did we say that case? But that's how the Marshal learns the sugya. Okay, I think and I don't think there are chilkum on that. Okay, so the Gemara right there. Let's go. Anyway, because in Imrat, so that's the Gemara so far, right? Now I think it's kedai to shtel sich up over here and say alom this over here. What's the pshat of the machlokes Rabba and Ravuna and Rabba and Ravuna? What's the machlokes toliyim? What do you say? I think it's pashit. Over here, I'm not. The machlokes is.
Can you say?
But do we go to Mafreya or not go to Mafreya? Do we go not to Mafreya? Do we go to Mafreya? What's the machlokes toli in this shaila? So, if anybody has any what's called. I want to hear any suggestions, but I'll tell you what I want to say. I want to say like this. The shaila is, why do I have to wait for Roiv for Leida to be chal? Is the vart that the Roiv that had not yet been born is holding back the part that was already born? But it's holding back the part that was already born. Right, and so until it's Yata Rubai, nothing came out. Or the pshat is no, Avada, the Roiv, nothing's holding back. Whatever comes out, it came out. We don't have to assume it's coming. It's going to go back in. Later, by definition, means it's going to go out. This is a one-way street. It's going to come out. And Avada should have been. Narvas, it's not enough of a Leda until I have Roiv. So again, is the Vard, I need Roiv, because until I have Roiv, it doesn't have a Chashivos. Or the Vard is, the part that's inside is holding you back. The nafkamina will be, in this case, if the vart is, if the shaila is, what will be the bein beini? If the vart is that the part that's inside is still holding on inside, and until I let go of the roiv inside, until the behemoth, while the behemoth is still not holding on to roiv inside, everything that comes out is not, it doesn't have a chashivas of a leda, so that's not good. So until it's yotzer rubai, it doesn't have a chashivas of a leda. Or no! The reason why I need Raven, not because it didn't have a chashivas of a leda in the first couple of steps. Avada had a chashivas of a leda in the first couple of steps. Narvas, but it wasn't enough. So it wasn't enough. So, but when I get to Raven, it'll be enough. When I get enough, it's not the pshat. It's not the pshat that all of a sudden the leda started now. Now the pshat is, now I have enough that all of it is a leda. You hear the Geshmak Mahalach? Yeah, if the reason why I needed Roiv was because I didn't have enough, so now I have enough, so all of it is a Leda, this is all part of the Leda. But if the pshat is the reason why I needed Roiv was because the Roiv was holding back, so then holding back, it's holding back until I pass that threshold. That's what I want to say, the svara of the machlokes between Rav Huna and Rabbah. the Gemara is going to be tailored on another machlokes, and a lot of lamdim are bothered why it's a tushtel. There's a lot of Torah about this, but let's go. We're going to try to do this as simple as possible. Okay, v'ozlu tamayu yotza shlish derech doifin u'shnei shlish derech rechem. What happened? If, let's say, it started off as a Caesarean, and then they changed course after the first third. So the first third was a Caesarean, and then after that, they did Shtei Shlishim Derech Rechem. Regular vaginal birth, right?
They cut off the first third?
I would imagine, well, that would be one mahalach, but another mahalach would be if, let's say, they somehow cut her open, and now.
But then the first third is...
The same machlokes, but fakert. Over here, Rav Huna is going to be the Meko, and Rabba is going to be the Machmer. It's not Kaddish. Why? You missed it. Why? Because the first shlish was derech doifen. It's over. Rabba Amar Kaddish. Because he says, how does it always happen? It always takes part from the beginning of the first majority, from the beginning till Rav. Right, that's where Leda happens. That's where the Leda, that's where Psichas Rechem happens. Lesa berechem, and since the first roiv was not completely berechem, because half of it was b'doifen fafalen, and therefore you're not going to have a leda. You're not going to have it's not going to be a peterachem. Rabba ma kaddish, because Rabba tameida ma mikanu la'aba kaddish, v'ruba derech rechem nachfik. Anyways, you don't get things started until Rav. And Lamaisa, once you get through Rav, we could measure the Rav after. Once we got past the Rav, we could already start measuring the derech rechem, and the Lamaisa went derech rechem b'roiv, and therefore you're going to be kaddish. In other words, the Gemara is going to say that since one is a machman, the other one is a mekel, so it could be that everyone is just going into chumrah, and that's why we have to say both cases where that Rabbah holds his svara completely, and he's completely sure of his position to the point that he's going to go l'kula as well, and same is with Rav Huna. The Ashmina b'ha kam Rav Huna mishum de l'kula. So Rashi explains it means the other way. B'hakam Rav Huna, that not like Rabbah, because if he would hold like Rabbah, it would be a kula. But over here, that holding like Rabbah would be l'chumra. V'yashmin, moving to today's baf. V'yet ma b'hakam Rabbah b'ha im moed Rav Huna tzricha. Okay, that's the Gemara. Now we get to our Mishnah. Tanan. Our Mishnah hamvakeres hamkashaleleit mecha take aver umashlich leklavim. So you're allowed to cut off piece, cut it up piecemeal, and be mashlich leklavim. Zok the Gemara. And if you remember, we said that Lo Rav Huna, right? Lo Rav Huna, you're not allowed to give it to the klavim once you get to Rav. Why? Because retroactively it all had kedusha, right? Lo Rabbah, it didn't have kedusha. The first Rav didn't have a kedusha. All these evarim. Because why? Because kedusha only kicks in once it was another Rav. But like Rav Huna, it works retroactively is all kaddish to the point that he nullified mechira to the guy, right? I'm allowed to throw it to the dogs, and the Gemara assume that throwing it to the dogs means I make a whole pile and then I'll give it to the dogs when I'm ready, right? My love, doesn't it mean that I cut it up and I put it on a pile and I'm going to give it to the dogs? If it's going to Mafreya, once I get to the Rav, kedusha is gonna kick in, and I have to be covered. I'm not allowed to give it to the klavim. So no, we have to be mukim the Mishnah. We have to make an ukimta in the Mishnah that it means mechatech u mashlich. Yeah, that is the what's called it. That what? That he cuts off each piece and right away gives it to the dogs as they come out. So Mamela what? There's never going to be a roiv. There was never a roiv that's going to get a kedushas b'chayra. Frakti Gemara. So what's going to be? Aval mechatech umeniach ma'i cover. So then the oibazoi is going to come out that if he's mechatech umeniach, if he piles it up, it's cover. Then it has to go into the. It has to go. He has to bury it and he can't give it to the dog. So Adetan is say for Yotza Rubai Yikava. And if you remember, we said that Yotza Rubai means Bevasachas. That's the taich of the word Rubai. Adetan is say for Yotza Rubai Yikava. That if it came out Bevasachas, then he has to be covered. Right? You cover even if that's the end of the Mishnah. Like let's talk about the same case. Like Ravuna, that what? Even if it was not Yatza Rubai, even if it didn't come out all at once, but even if it came out piece by piece, but still there's a case where I have to be covered. We're in a case where he piled it up, where he was mechatech umeniach. Why don't we say such a case that let's be mechal gufa even when it's not yatsa rubai, which means b'vasachas. Even if it was yatsa aver, I should still have to mean. I should still It should still be be mechatech u may. The Mishnah should be mechalik that when it's yatsa aver, we still have a case where you have to be covered, which is if he was mechatech u may niach. So Gemara Hachinami Kamam. Ba'amedvar memurim b'mechatech umashlich. Take enechanami. That's where you could, we're teaching that into our Mishnah itself. Where that's only when he mechatech umashlich. Ava mechatech umeniach. Nasa kemi sheyatza rubai v'yikaver. If he left it all piled, then it's as if he was nasa kemi sheyatza rubai v'yikaver. Now this nasa kemi sheyatza rubai v'yikaver, it's not exactly clear what does it mean. What's the taich? We're not changing the gears of the Mishnah. So what do we mean when we say nasa kemi? Yeah. So what does it mean, nasa kemi? Right. So and it's not so pashut. I'll tell you why it's not so pashut. Because the Reb Kiva asked a kasha on the Rav. We said Rashi in the Mishnah teaches that Yatza Rubai means B'vasachas. Rashi says so in the Mishnah. Now, but right, so and the Rav says so, teaches like that in the Mishnah itself. So Craig is very bothered. He says like this. He says Mela, I mean, this is how already the Achronim explained the Kegas Kasha. Mela Rashi has a right. He's explaining the Mishnah before the Gemara, so he has a right to write the Mishnah like the Pashtus, like we say that Rubai is the Pashtus, and since Rubai is the Pashtus means Bavasachas, so he'll teach Bavasachas, even though Ravuna has a different teach. But the Rav should go la'alocha, and la'alocha we pass like Ravuna that it goes to Mafreya, and Mela the Pshat in the Mishnah means mechatech umeniach ba'amedvar ma'urim mechatech umashrav mechatech umeniach nasa k'mishiyat ruba v'yikaver. So therefore, the Rav should have touched that. That is how that's what Kegas Kasha on the Rav. And I'll just point out that it's interesting to it would be a shtickle interesting to understand what Kega means. In other words, how is he understanding the nasa k'mi? I mean. L'maisa the Mishnah says Rubai, right? And Rubai means Rubai. Rubai means Vasachas. So what does Nasa mean? Nasa mean, it seems like it would mean that the reason why I was saying the Yotza Rubai to tell you the case of Mechatech Umeniach. But we're not changing the type of Yotza Rubai. Yotza Rubai means Yotza Rubai. It always means Yotza Rubai. And therefore, it could be that it's not such a shtel on the Rav that the Rav touched Rubai means vasachas. Even though, because even l'maskanas Gemara, we're not changing the touch of the word Rubai. We're just saying that somehow you could touch it in the Nasakami because it's not so shver that we put it in that we said that Nasakami somehow somehow Yotzer Rubai coming in right after our case teaches you that you covered. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit lumdis here. So why? There's two stells here. First of all, why could I make? Why? How could I make a mum b'chlal in it? How am I allowed to make a mum? So that's the kasha that Tosfos asks on the bottom of the first Tosfos. On the bottom of the top Tosfos on over here on Amud Aleph on Ayin Amud Aleph. So Tosfos says like this. V'amai de mechatech nami loy kashelei heichi mato b'mom the ikal okbe b'nefel she'en aroi lakrova inami mechatech kodem sheyotz la'avar oilam. Yeah, we're not going to ask a kasha how you matal mum because maybe we're talking about a nefel and maybe we're talking about mechatech kodem sheyotz la'avar oilam. That's how Tosfos says it. Rashi, and the Ramban hold not like that. So Rashi and the Ramban hold, Rashi over here in the next sugya, and the Ramban say that no, the motel lahatel mum bebechor koidim sheyotz la'avar oilam. Yeah, so the shayla is what's the machlokes? Again, in Ravuna that it's going lemafreya, and lemafreya might be gloi milsa lemafreya that this is kaddish, right? So the shaila is if it's going to be a gloi milsa lemafreya that it's kaddish right now, how can I be matamum? What? That's the shaila. Yeah. So Tosfos says, it's also to be matumum. Why? Because the mafreya we're going to find out that this is a regular bechor, and if it's a regular bechor, that can't be matumum. That's how Tosfos learns. Yeah. So Tosfos, in a way, is very simple to understand. But the shayla is like the Ramban and Rashi. I mean, Rashi doesn't say mefurish Ravuna, but Ramban says mefurish Ravuna. Rashi Pashtus is saying Ravuna as well. So the shayla is, why is there no problem of being matumum? The mafreya, I'm going to find out that right now it's a bechor, and I'm being matumum in a bechor. Yeah. That is the question that the Ramban poses, and the Ramban seems to be learning the lumdis that we all very familiar with, which is called Mekanal Abolim Afreya. Yeah, and the Chura that's posh, right? The kedusha, right? Only so from the fact that I was allowed to throw it into the klavim, and the klavim were able to, and the klavim eat it up. The kedusha doesn't come. Why? Why was I allowed to throw it to the klavim? I might find out that this has kedusha's bechar. Right. So how does it work? So what's the word? That whatever is here.
Kanal mafreya is when you need something special that to be chal mafreya. It's only chal kanal above mafreya. You need something from the special to come out of the way the snuba.
Everything that's extant here, right?
You need something from the special to come out of and keep glowing mills from mafreya.
Okay. So Rashi clearly learns the chiluk in between again. So I can't sell it. The reason why I can't sell it, but I could be mashlach leklavim. The difference is because why? Because being mashlach leklavim, it's already gone. It's already eaten up. Mashenka, when it comes to selling, it's still around. If it's still around, kedusha's bechayra is gonna be chal retroactively. That is how Rashi learns, right? Now, what will be by Oila, Frek Tosfos, that Lamaisa, Tosfos has a raya from a Gemara in Bechayris, that in Gemara in Bechayris is mashma, that even Koidim Roiv, you could be Makdish for Oila. The question is, if it already has Kedushas Bechayra, retroactively Kedushas Bechayra should happen. So Tosfos says that Gemara must not be going to Lerafuna. Yeah? And then Tosfos says 3 words. He says, at the bottom of the Tosfos, in yesterday's blot on the bottom. So Tosfos imloy nechalik bein bechira loy v'kerchavim lahanach. Unless you will be mechalik in between selling it to kerchavim lahanach. Tosfos doesn't explain what it is, and that's where the big bucks are. That's where it is a Merit Argazi, there's a Chasam Sofer, there's a Briskerov, there's a Chazon Ish. Everybody wants to say Torah about what this chilik is. What would be the chilik in L'chura? Kedushas B'chara is Kedushas B'chara, and it shouldn't make a difference. Yeah? So, the Briskerov, I would just say over the Briskerov because that's like you have to say the Briskerov. Briskerov also is bothered by a Murray Gestira in the Rambam. That the Rambam, I mean the way that's how he shows affect the kasha. The Rambam paskins like Rav Huna, and on the other hand he paskins that like the Gemara in Bechoros that you could be makdish it before Raif. And the question is, the Tosfos says the only Imloy Nechalek, right? Tosfos has it says that it must be that Gemara is going to look Rabbah. So how does the Rambam paskin like these two Gemaras? Zaktir Briskerov goes through a ganzer shtickle Torah. He wants to say that our whole sugya has nothing to do with Kedushas B'chayra, like the Rambam. It's not about when the Kedushas B'chayra is chal. Avad the Kedushas B'chayra is not in question. That's not going to be chal until the Rav. And Memela, I could be makdish it, and Memela, I could sell it to the klavim. It wasn't being makd. It wasn't being chal. Our Gemara's suffix is only legabe the shem peterechem, meaning that peterechem means something that goes through the rechem. A roiv of the rechem. That's the definition of peter rechem. The question is, which part gives you the shem peter rechem? That's what he wants to say. That's the tushtel to the next machlekes, the machlekes legabe. If it was yatsa miyutay derech doifin, and then afterwards a roiv derech rechem. Because that's the shayla. It's all the shayla legabe the shem peter rechem, and he's being mechadish that the yad Akum be'emtza is not totally in Kedushas B'chayra. It's not totally in Kedushas B'chayra. It's totally like the Rambam's going to be totally in if it was Peter Rechem or not. And therefore, the shaila is which part gives you a Shem Peter Rechem. That's the word of the Briskerov, and that's how he's miyashiv the sugya ayin sham. Let's go weiter. Zakti Yomar weiter. Zakti Yomar. Okay. Another two gewaldige sugyas, and then we're going to move to Amud Beis. Sagt ihr mal weiter. Boirava, yeah? Boirava. Hochu beivarim acharoiv, loy hochu beivarim acharoiv. Hochu beivarim acharoiv, loy hochu beivarim acharoiv. Do we somehow have a subcategory besides talking about the roiv of the uber? Do we also have to judge what is the majority of the limbs themselves? So what's in a gay? Why should I have to judge the limbs as well? So the Gemara has two tries. Meaning like this. That obviously roiv of the animal left was already born. But to make up this roiv, there was a little piece that was part of the roiv was a minority of one limb. That last limb that came out, the whole limb didn't come out. Just right when I got to the roiv point, the roiv mark, I was that last limb, the whole roiv of the limb stayed inside, and I just got a little piece of that last limb. If let's say roiv of the what? Roiv of the roiv of the roiv of the roiv of the whole uber was compiled with it include a miyat aver, a minority of the last aver. V'kami bayilei hay miyat the baroi, that little miyat. Since it to make up a roiv, it needs the miyat of that one aver that's majority inside. But that miyat of that aver, where do we throw it? Does it go with, let's say it's a hand, right? That last hand, there's a hand that's making up the roiv, and there's a miyat of the hand that's out, and roiv of the hand that's inside. So do we go high miyat de baroi, that minority part share of the hand that's outside basar roiv the avish adinale? Do we throw it back? Do we look at it as if it's still inside because the majority of the hand is still inside? Or do we throw it together with the majority of the uber and put it together with the rest of the roiv? Even though I don't have a roiv with it, but once I have it with that, it'll be the roiv of the uber. So let's throw it together with that. That's how the Gemara clears the shaila. That's what the Gemara wants to first explain as the pshat. So the Gemara pshita the loishavkina ruba de uba v'azlinan basar roiv aver. That would not make any sense for Rava to start clearing such a zach. It doesn't make any sense. You have the majority of the fetus that's out, and you could be part of the majority of the fetus, and you're going to go say that it's a subcategory because I'm part of the hand, and therefore to look as if I'm inside even though I'm outside. That doesn't make sense. Lo yishavkina ruba de uber v'azlina basar roiv aver. That wouldn't make any sense. So it must be a different case. The opposite. Only half went out. But the half that went out with that hand, not the minority went out, the roiv of the hand went out, but there's still a miyat still inside. And now we want that the roiv should somehow be mashlim the roiv. So do we recognize another roiv, a roiv of the hand itself, and to say that since the roiv of the hand is out, so the whole hand is out, and now I have roiv uber. That little miyat of the hand that still stayed in, that's the Gemara stuff. So the Gemara Tashma. Tashma Yatsa Rubai Hareze Yikaver. Our Mishnah says Yatsa Rubai Hareze Yikaver. My Rubai. Ilema Rubai Mamish. If we're talking about the regular good old Roiv, Adashta Leashmina the Rubai Kulai. All of a sudden, the Mishnah has to tell us that the halacha of Rubai Kekulai doesn't make any sense. We know Rubai Kekulai. It's a thing of allowing all of Shas. There must be something new that we're teaching us. Elalav Kigan Shiyatzu must be Rava's case. Kigan Shiyatzu Chetziyah B'Roiv Eiver. It must be. We're talking about Kigan Shiyatzu Chetziyah B'Roiv Eiver. That half. That had in Rava's case that it was only half, but half was compiled with the majority of the hand, and we want to say that that's also going to be Rubai. So we're not lie. Kigoin, no. Kigoin sheyatza Rubai b'miyat aver. That what it's talking about in the case where the majority is out. But the majority only has a miyat aver, a little piece of aver. Kamash Malan, the Leishafkina Rubai, the Uber, the Behema, Vazlinan, Basar, Aver. That we and the Chiddush of the Mishnah is that we don't leave over the Roiv of the Uber of the Behema and we go Basar the Aver. Now what's the obvious kasha on the sugya? Frekta Teisus Rosh. We just said that can't be the husband in Rav Suffolk. We just said pshita deloi shavkina ruba de uba de behema vazlina basar aver. And now the Gemara says, no, that's the pshat now Mishnah. Yeah, the Gemara said pshita deloi shavkina ruba de uba vazlina basar aver. And now all of a sudden we're going to say kamashma deloi shavkina ruba de uba vazlina basar aver. So, Zakta Teisa Rosh, yeah? Zakta Teisa Rosh, yeah? That's the derech of the Gemara, that even though it's not a suffix, even though it wouldn't make sense for Rava to declare it, because Taket Pshita Leishafkina Ruba de Uba de Behema Vazlina Basa Ruba de Aver, it wouldn't make any sense to disregard the roiv of the animal and all of a sudden look at the limb on its own subcategory to somehow negate the roiv of the thing. but it still makes sense for the Mishnah to give such a chiddush. That's the derech HaGemara. But I think if you look at Rashi, it would seem like this. If you look at Rashi at the end of the sugya, all of a sudden explains it differently. Rashi says, very simple, because how can you change the chashivas? How can you all of a sudden see the chashivas of the hand before the Eber? But over here, Rashi says a different shot. Rashi says, Elishadia basa roiv uber, and Rashi says, why? Hoyel ubahadei nafik. Rashi all of a sudden throws in that svara. Hoyel ubahadei nafik. What's Rashi saying? So I want to say like this. Rashi, in the beginning of the sugya, Rava was never talking about our Mishnah. So since he was not talking about our Mishnah, he was talking about a complete Bechor. A regular complete Bechor. That's why over here Rashi introduced the question of the problem of being Matal Bechor. In the Mishnah, we're talking about a Makasha Leiled. It's already in bits and pieces. It's not a problem of being Matal Mom. Over here, Rashi tells us that there's a problem. It's possible, right? And over here, we're talking about a complete animal. With the Rav is talking about a regular case where nowadays, if you have an animal coming out, and it's a complete animal. In a complete animal, it's pashit, d'loi shafkinon ruben de behema, vazlina basu roiv aver. Mashenkin in our Mishnah where we're talking about pieces, bits and pieces. And we're talking about bits and pieces? Mama, who says? Maybe you should go basar reveva, right? Mechatesa. No! The chiddush is, in our Mishnah where it's pieces, also, we don't go basar reveva, hoyel b'adei nafik. Since it came out with the rive, we go basar rive. But the chilik between the Havamina and the Maskana is in the beginning. Rava was obviously talking about a regular full bona fide bechor. Mechatesa is talking about a bechor that's broken up into pieces. But Mashenk and our Mishnah is clearly talking about aver. We're definitely clearly talking about pieces, and by pieces, that's where there's a makom to have a chilik. I think that's the shot in this Gemara. Okay, let's go weiter. Now the Gemara goes, what happens if he's karchay b'siv? Let's say he tied around the animal b'siv. Siv is a piece from the tree, somehow tied around. Maybe they're trying to pull it out. There's different pieces. It's b'kashalei. You're taking out little pieces, bits and pieces. Mahu or b'talisay mahu b'shel yasay mahu b'shel yasay frektimara orchehu. There's always a shilya coming out. Ella b'shilya acheres. A shilya of a different animal. Again, he's trying to grab it with something. Mahu. Now here is the most interesting Gemara next. Karchasoi v'achazasoi v'atziasoi mahu. It doesn't say karchoi v'achazasoi, right? It obviously means that he used his hands. But it doesn't say karchoi, it says karchasoi. Why is karchasoi? So Rashi and Tosfos both make it clear that this is a lashon nekeva. So some sort of a nekeva here. Karchasoi. What happened? What's the nekeva? Zok Rashi. Karchasoi. You know why? Because we're talking about Isha, the one who's being miyala this child, this baby is a Isha, and therefore we set up a lashon nekeva. So Tosfos fouls Rashi. He says it's not true. We always know maybe women are midwives. They midwife by humans, but when it comes to animals, it's the raya that does it. It's not a woman. There's no women's lib here. What's going on over here? Das frekt Tosfos. Yeah, das frekt Tosfos. Now, Tosfos goes with the Rach's girsa, a whole different girsa. That the case over here we're talking about is that there was a twin child, a twin uber in the mother's womb, and the achoisai of this would be bechor was twisted around the what's called it, around the head of the bechor. And the question is, so since its twin is around it, so therefore it didn't touch the rechem, so maybe it's a chatzitza and it won't be peter rechem. That's how Tosfos says. But I want to teach, and this is where I was mechavan to myself. I want to teach like this. Tosfos says Yeah, Tosfos says that the derech b'chlal, it's b'chlal not a derech for a woman to give birth to the child, right? It's b'chlal not the derech. So maybe that's takem shot in the Suffolk Gemara. So Rashi, karcha isha biyadel v'tziyasai v'hefsiku yadel beinoi levein rechem mi amrina kiven to orche hu leilet as behem ta lav chatzitzai. Means like this. That's pasha that the hands of the roya are not a chatzitza because that's the derech. The question is what? The question is what'll be by a isha? Why are we declaring by a isha? Like Tosfos says, because the derech is that a isha never does it. So since the derech is that a isha never does it, that's good for the Gemara's clearing. Maybe it will blind since the isha never does it. And she did it over here. It'll blind a chatzitza. What? Yeah, weiter. Okay. Sagt die Gemara, so now Tosfos is very famuchet with this derech reisha over here. And Tosfos holds that later Rach's pshat that we're talking about a isha, a twin, it's more miyoshev. Rashi learns that we're talking about all the sveikus of the Gemara is what the Gemara is talking about. All the sveikus, Shilya, Siv, Talis, and all of them. And the Achronim explain in Rashi because the word is the Peter Rechem. What's the Peter Rechem? Peter Rechem is what opens up the womb, and the head is the biggest thing. So therefore it's taka not shaykh to get any hands in or anything in when the head's there. That's not shaykh. We understood that we're talking about the legs or the other parts. So if they did derech reisha, he was already. If this animal is coming out head first, so then it was already patrase. That's obvious that this chatzitza is not happening during the head because the head has the largest part. You can't get anything around the head. So obviously we're talking about the other parts. Fine. It went out the feet first, and then memela was possible to get hands or sieve or something inside. If let's say a chulda swallowed it up and he brought it out of the animal, so he went into the womb of the mother and he swallowed up the baby, and then he left the animal, left the baby. He took it out already, so finished. It wasn't a petrechem, so it's a regular chatzitz like all the things that we declared in the Gemara. So Gemara, what'll happen if he went inside, swallowed it, took it out, and then he came back in and he spit it out? Or hidbik shnei rachamim v'yatza mizeh v'nichnes lezeh mahu. That what happened if you took the two animals, two women, two paras, and you put the rechem of both of them next to each other, and the uber left one and went into the second one, and the question is, could we make the second one? Does the second one become a mivakeres? And now the second one, if it has another child, it was already patas rachma. Mau di day patar the lavdi day loy patar. Oidilma the lavdi day nami patar. Maybe it's lavdi day. It could also pater, right? So we see very very clear. Agavorcha the Achronim say from here is a raya that surrogate mother is not the mother because it's called lavdi day. But there's another shmuz over here in the Shaila. What's the halacha legabe the first mother? Again, there was a one mother that we will madbik to the next mother, and we're clearing about the second one that's not the real mother. Good, we're clearing about the one that's not the real mother. But what's the story with the first mother? So some Acharim say, the first one is Avada, she's Avada of Patas Rachma. It's only the second one that we're clearing. But I don't understand that, because if that's the pshat, then why do we need Hidbik Shnei Rachmim V'yotzim Mizeh V'nichnas Lezeh? Just to have a clear, if we take a fetus from one and put it into the other one. Why are we clearing Dafka Hidbik? The teretz is that we understand that it's not going to be called, that's pashut, it's not going to be called Peter Rechem B'chlal until it's Yotzla Avroila. So if it's not until it's Yatzal Avar Olam, so the first one is not Pater. I think it's Pashut that the first one was not Pater Rachma, and we're clearing about the second one. That's what I would think. Also by, okay, let's go. If let's say the Kaisle Beis Harachem opened up and it didn't, so because it wasn't scratching along the Kaisle Beis Harachem, it just slipped out. Is it just a place of the Rechem that's Makdish and Lamaisa that he did? He went through. He has to touch the Rechem itself. If let's say Beis Harechem got uprooted, in other words, and we're assuming that the pshat is that they're gone. In fact, tomorrow, Nekru, Lasinu, they're gone. If they're gone, again, these are all the questions that we're going to have. These are all obviously scenarios. The reason why it comes into our Gemara is because we're talking about a behema, hamvakeres, hamakashalele. These are things that happen by a behema, hamvakeres, hamakashalele. The mushal, the sieve, and the talis, all these things. This is what happens, dafka, in this case, where the behema is makashalele, and it's a mavakeres. Nekru lasenu ela nekru v'tolu b'tzavare mai. So Rashi explains like this: the case is that the mother's womb got uprooted from the mother, but it slipped back into the animal. It slipped back into her own womb, and the Kaisel Beis Harechem slipped in, and it ended up on the baby's neck, right over the baby's head. So now the question is, my bim koimon mikachi shlei bim koimon le mikachi. Do we need that it should be bim koimon, meaning in its place where it is mikachi shlei bim koimon le mikachi? I don't much shlei bim koimon nami mikachi. What? No, that's the question. If it's Peter Rechem, let's get one last shtickle Gemara, and I see we're gonna end by Amud Aleph. We'll start on the base by Hashem tomorrow. So over here, Rashi explains two pshat in what nigmumu is. Either nigmumu means that he thinned it out. You didn't get the full thickness of the rechem because some of it was scraped around. Or nigmu kaisel beis harechem means that you cut it that in the length. It's not the full length of the beis harechem because you cut off at one point, let's say the beginning or the end. You're touching a question that we cleared. Oimed miruba la parutz v'yatsa derech parutz. Yeah, if let's say you have an oimed and a parutz, there's a tear, so it's not the whole thing is the rechem. There's part of it is a tear, part of it is broken, part of it is oimed is the rechem is there. So if let's say I have oimed miruba parutz, I have roiv of it is the rechem, but there's a parutz v'yatsa derech parutz, or the opposite, parutz miruba la oimed. It was more of a parutz v'ruba oimed, but v'yatsa derech oimed mai. Ad kan loy kami ba'ilon. We never cleared. In other words, he's saying that we were absolutely certain, and therefore you have the same, and therefore you should just understand that that's the svara, that ela parutz miruba oimed. The ikka oimed ba'olam, because the oimed is here. Avol negmamu. If let's say the rechem was somehow touched, either thinned out or taken in the length, that would not be a shayla, and avada that would not work. And I guess we'll leave it here. We have to pick up tomorrow's blot.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We'll have to be on 11:30 Bez Hashem tomorrow.